Today's dedication is for Zahn, who gave me a very generous 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon. The Gitrog Ravenous ride versus Aragorn, Faldorn and Gigantha. See if we can start with a 7 card hand this time, because we had to go down to 3 in the last video and that is not a good start. God, if we had 1 green mana there, that would be a good hand, but we don't. Alright, and yep, gonna have to go down a card again. Let's see if we end up with a 2 card hand to start off with. Alright, that's not the worst. Actually, we have no ramp there. I saw the Great Henge there and just assumed that we had ramp straight away, but we absolutely do not. I mean, it's just a turn 4 Daemogoth and then in for the commander. Are our opponent's gonna go too fast for us here? Probably, but we'll keep it anyway. Get rid of Galta. Thanks to having these Surveil lands nowadays, obviously we've only got 1 in this colour pair, but thanks to having those we can fix at least one of our draws and get closer to some ramp that we need, which does encourage me to keep these worst hands sometimes. Turn 1 Llanowar Elves for the Gruul player doesn't bode well for us, although if there's removal in the other player's hands then they'll likely point it at whoever gets ahead first. That assumes that this is an interactive game though. Scryland for the 4 colour deck. Alright, there is a Mithril Coat, so let's go for the Surveil land. And there we see a Wayward Sawtooth, which isn't the worst turn 3 drop, so gives us another creature as well. Let's keep that on top. Means we'll have to skip turn 2, but we have something to do on turn 3 at least. And the Mana Dork allows for a turn 2 Professional Facebreaker, so ramping ahead nicely. And then holding up the double blue, luckily we've got nothing to do on turn 2 anyway, so yeah, just going for a shock land on turn 2, I think. We'll just do it now. Wild Canter for Gigantha. Can add a mana of any colour by sacrificing this. Llanowar Elf swings to the right. Facebreaker uses Menace to the left. So making a couple of treasures with the Facebreaker. And it's a Rasta, the Endless Web, so it looks like that's going to get countered maybe. No, it's an Enlightened Shooter from the 4 colour player. So playing that before this lands so that he doesn't get the spider token. This cares about instants or sorceries. Then Cultivate being played into the Arasta, making it the first spider token. Searched out a Cryptolith Rite with this, so is now drawn into it. Noteworthy, there is a Gavony Township here as well for plus counters. Alright, so wouldn't mind seeing a land here. Oh, Tireless Provisioner is better than a Wayward Sawtooth potentially. Which makes me regret somewhat putting this on top, but obviously we didn't know what we were going to get into. Can't play a land into the Tireless Provisioner is the problem. So might as well go for the Wayward Sawtooth in that case. And that allows us into a second land, which we will name Horror with for our commander. Don't think there's any other frogs in the deck, but there might be some horrors. So if we don't get into a land next turn, that would be pretty unlucky, but we can always go for the Great Henge. Yeah, I don't think we'll go for this because we definitely need more mana for the Gitrog monster and probably sacrifice the Wayward Sawtooth to it, to be honest. But we've got a chance of getting down a turn 4 Gitrog at this point. The 5 colour player just holding up mana and passing the turn. So we'll assume damage is going to get spread around now. We can't block with the dinosaur. Token to the left. Facebreaker at us. Alright, not swinging in with the Mana Dork. So just have to take the damage. So triggering twice again with the Facebreaker. And after that we see a Visions of Phyrexia. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card and you can play it this turn. So, say Phyrexian Arena sort of. They don't have their commander out in play yet, so they're not going to take too much advantage of this. And didn't play anything from exile, so that same enchantment will give them a Power Stone token at the end of the turn. Not sure how many artifacts they've got in the deck, we haven't seen too many yet. Torrens, Fist of the Angels, not one that you see very much of thanks to all the commanders that are out in recent years, but that's a really good one. And a Cryptolith Rite ready for when the tokens start entering. So see if we get into a land here. We do not, that's a Cultivate though, so Cultivate leaves us with 3 mana after the fact. It's really awkward drawing into things in all the wrong order unfortunately, so yeah, if we hadn't left the Wayward Sawtooth on top, we could have played that last turn, then gone for the Cultivate this turn and ramped ahead, but we're just better off going for the Cultivate at this point. Can't go for the Great Henge first either, so just get on with it. Again, a Cultivate triggers the Arasta, and we have mixed the basics, so we'll grab a Snow Swamp, And we'll play out a regular forest this turn. So now if we draw into Field of the Dead, we will trigger it straight away. Yeah, nothing else we can do here. And Gigantha didn't do anything at the end of our turn either, so literally just holding up 4 mana and not doing anything, strangely. Getting into a 4th land by turn 4. Again, if we draw into a land next turn, we can go for the Great Henge into the Gitrog monster and then hopefully still sacrifice the Swordtooth, so not in the worst spot. Gigantha playing only the 2nd spell but getting the commander into play. Visions of Phyrexia exiles the top card for the first time. And it's a Castle Garenbrig. So how's this worded? If you didn't play a card from exile, so they can choose between a Power Stone and Castle Garenbrig. I think it's obvious which one to choose. Imperial Recruiter for a tutor. And searching up with that, a Goblin and Archamancer, so really playing into a board wipe. Plays the castle from exile. Plays the Goblin. And then the Facebreaker into the left. We get a Spider token. So it's going to be 2 treasures from the Facebreaker again. And it doesn't seem as though any players at the table have a board wipe, so yeah, the exile player is going to be difficult to deal with. And now a bit more ramp as well. Birgi, God of Storytelling, only 3 cards in hand, so a board wipe would hurt this player. Maybe Human Tribal that our opponent's gone for here, I'm just realising. Aragorn the Unifier comes into play anyway. Alright, again, hoping for a land off the top. We've got 38 in the deck, so should be able to draw into them, but apparently not. That is an Assassin's Trophy. We're not going to have any blockers held up, but I mean we don't have any blockers held up now, so can we even get through with Gitrog Monster at this point? Maybe we do just go for the Tireless Provisioner here and hope that we can draw into a land by cantripping, because then if we get enough mana next turn we can go for the Gitrog and the Mithril Coat. So get the Great Henge down while we've got a big creature in play. I think we did better with a 3-card hand during the last game actually. But we'll see if Tireless Provisioner is going to do anything for us. Plus counter on that and draw a card. And still no land, but gets us a step closer. That is the green sleeves, going to make Badger tokens with landfall. Gigantha being allowed to stick around and now is casting Unite the Coalition, so not keeping hold of the Great Henge for very long. Destroying the Facebreaker with, is that only 2 damage? Oh no, it must have been 2 damage twice. Destroying Artifact or Enchantment, and he drew 2 cards there. Noteworthy that the Cryptolith Rite was ignored there, which might be regretful from our opponent. Not like we need the Great Henge to draw a bunch of cards in this deck. Exiling off the top with the red enchantment, a Reckless Impulse, which gives more impulse draw. So it might be time to get down the commander here, but like I keep saying, they're playing into a board wipe potentially. Birgi triggers on them casting the Faldorn. Reckless Impulse, exile the top 2 cards and you can play them. So ironically playing that from exile, Feldhorn makes the first wolf token. And they continue to make mana with Birgi. And obviously their spells are discounted because of this thing as well. Exiling a Yavimaya and a Findhorn Elves. So playing the land and the Findhorn Elves makes a wolf as well. Bitter Reunion then. Discard a card, draw 2, you can give your stuff haste. Discarding a basic. And now a Magus of the Wheel. Our opponent could give that haste and crack it straight away. He's only got 3 cards in hand, so might be worth him doing. Okay, tapping a bunch of mana, but going for a Path to Exile onto his own token. You mean to do that? Making a human soldier when he does that, so just using it to ramp. Oftentimes on Magic Online you can choose the wrong target when you start tapping for mana. So anyway, managed to get out another basic with it at least. And there we go, there's the Farewell. That's probably going to wreck the Gruul player's board here. Could go for the crack on the Haste Enabler and then the Magus of the Wheel, but this is going to buy us the time that we needed. So it's a shame to lose the Tireless Provisioner there, but we didn't have the Great Henge available to us anyway, so I think we can just rely on the fact that we're going to get a big fatty into play here and then go for the Gitrog Monster on the next turn, and of course now we draw into a land. So let's go for the green sleeves, I think. What do we have to do with this? When it attacks or blocks, sack a creature, so that can just sit there. Yeah, we'll go for that instead, because green sleeves I'd like to have in play to make a bunch of tokens if I can. So play a land and get the Demogoth Titan down. And this way we can hold up the Assassin's Trophy. We can get the Mithril Coat into play at instant speed as well if someone goes for a wheel. A battle, that is Invasion of Ixalan. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5. Reveal a permanent. put it into hand and the rest on the bottom, turns into a 4/3 trample. And then another battle from the 5-colour player, Invasion of Regatha. Enters the battlefield, 4 damage to a battle or an opponent, 1 damage to a creature, and then it turns into a 4/4 prowess. If a non-creature source you control would deal damage to a creature, battle, or opponent, it's that much +2. The green one was handed over here to defend, by the way. And the red one sent over here as well. Damage was dealt to this thing with the red one, so that is enough to have it flip round. And turns into that 4/3 trample with potential indestructible. Green Sun Zenith, where X is 5, so searching up a creature here. Okay, and going after an Azusa, so not sure why he put 5 mana into that, wasn't sure what to tutor for apparently. Gets another land in, so just 1 card in hand. We'll see what this player does, because we want to destroy a creature with Assassin's Trophy, I think, to guarantee getting the Gitrog monster through. Assuming that there's no Source to Plowshares here or anything. A Herald Torn, so a means of discounting the humans, and a 3 visits after that, so don't have to use the Assassin's Trophy then, although they could still get a 3 mana human down here. Yep, there it is. A Trample Enabler. Yeah, seeing as how the Gitrog monster has Trample, we'll risk things not being buffed because there's not much chance of it when people are tapped out and have few cards in hand. This is where we potentially start to go off here, so we'll hold on to the Assassin's Trophy for now. And we'll just hope that there's no swords, like I said. Now we're getting into the lands. Getting to that land just in the nick of time, so Field of the Dead, play the Gitrog, and then before we go through to combat, saddle with the Daemogoth Titan. We might as well, just in case something happens to that creature before we can sacrifice it, we might as well go for the zombie token as well, so that we can get at least something out of the Gitrog. And then now we can go through to combat. Easy on Magic Online to forget about the saddle. So trample through the Azusa. No blocks made, so we get all the 6 points of commander damage in. And triggers our commander. So go after the 11/10, of course. That gets us into a bunch of lands. We've got the Greater Good, Topiary Stomper, Malakir Rebirth. I don't think we'll be able to hold up because we'll go for the Canopy cover. Another big creature, Archfiend of Ifnir. For when we draw too many cards, we have to discard. So yeah, we've already made a land, so we'll get all these in. Sometimes you want to hold on to a land so that you can play it and have it come in untapped. So that's 5 lands coming into play. And we're going to get 5 zombies, 5 triggers on the Field of the Dead. Noteworthy that the MDFC lands here don't count as lands when they're in your hands, so can't play that with the Gitrog. And we've got 9 cards in hand, so we need to decide what we want to get rid of here. Let's go Canopy cover onto our commander. And I think it's Topiary Stomper that we'll give up on. So we end up with 5, 10, 13 mana. Or 13 lands, 14 mana thanks to the Ancient Tomb. And now that we've had 1 trigger with the Gitrog monster, we're not too worried about board wipes and stuff, because the haste on that thing is very much relevant. Gigantha coming into play again is going to be too slow, I think. But indestructible, landing on the Belligerent Regisaur. Noteworthy this thing doesn't have trample anymore thanks to the red creature, so going after the battle, and could leave it at 1. Conspiracy Theorist empties the hand of the Gruul player. Whenever you discard 1 or more non-land cards, exile 1 of them from your graveyard and you can cast it. So they're going to be able to get card advantage from the rummage there. We're going to have to wait until next turn, not getting out their commander again, curiously. Herald's Horn revealing the top card, see if they get a human out of it. They do, one of the rare occasions in which you actually get card advantage from that, a Catilda, Dawnheart Prime. Obviously depends on the number of creatures in the deck though. Aragorn back into play, and 2 mana available. Oh, I actually forgot about this thing. Yeah, I've just pointed out that this thing doesn't have trample anymore thanks to the red creature. Obviously ours doesn't either, so it was lucky that the Azusa didn't block before. We've got the Canopy cover now, so it doesn't matter, but yeah, that was lucky that we were allowed through, because I totally forgot we don't have trample anymore. Catilda being played after being revealed. Makes a human token, and was it Scry on the green? No, blue is Scry, of course. +4/+4 onto this thing, from it being a green creature. So see where the 7/6 ends up going. So the 7/6 in at Gigantha. And this has 5 power, so can get through. Alright, see what we can do here. I think going for the Archfiend of Ifnir will be the thing. There is a Nature's Law. We're finally getting into the lands and stuff here when it's a bit too late. So Mithril Coat would be good. Shakedown Heavy and the Archfiend of Ifnir. Yeah, let's shock ourselves, go for the Shakedown Heavy, and we can crew that this turn. And then after that it can be the Archfiend of Ifnir, ready to discard a bunch. And that leaves us with 2 mana for a Nature's Law, 4 mana Mithril Coat, and then we'll have 2 mana left up for an Assassin's Trophy or a Malakir Rebirth, but obviously we need to see what we draw into here. So once again, before combat, tap down the Shakedown Heavy, go through to attacks, and I want all the zombies to go into the right, and the Gitrog to go down the middle, and I may well blow this thing up with the Assassin's Trophy, because yeah, there's potentially scary stuff going on there. So blocking with just 1 human token and 10 damage being taken by the zombies, Gitrog cannot be blocked in this scenario. Gonna need Reachers or Flyers in order to block that. So triggering for a second time during this game, and we will sacrifice the 6-powered creature, and then that means we've got 3 lands into play here, leaving us with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, discard 2. We'll be -2 on everything, which will be pretty good. But what do we want to play? Can hold on to the Mithril Coat, can hold on to the Assassin's Trophy as well if needs be. Don't have to get down the Garruk's Uprising, so yeah, get all these in. Actually haven't played a land this turn, I don't think, so we could have played one of those in untapped. Something that we do have to bear in mind. Another thing we could do, we drew into this battle, which is the only one in the deck. For 5 mana we could return 3 cards to our hand and then discard some other stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 means that we can't do any kind of removal or Mithril Coat or anything though. So we'll just pass the turn at that. Discard a Nature's Law, and the Malakir Rebirth is hopefully irrelevant because the Mithril Coat is going to come into play soon. So that is -2 on all of our opponent's stuff, and they are counters, so it's relevant debuffs. Get through to this player's turn. Try and get some counter magic out of the hand here. Let's go for the Assassin's Trophy now. Alright, successfully blowing that up, but we do ramp our opponent at least. They're in eager need of haste over there. Alright, in Maelstrom Nexus, the first spell you cast each turn has Cascade. That's a really cool one. So Indestructible on the Dinosaur, which is currently sat at a mere 2-1. And we see yet another battle, seeing a lot of those this game. X is 1, so search your library and or graveyard for a non-human creature with mana value 1, put it onto the battlefield. And that thing is 6 loyalty, turns into an 8/8 reach. Again, handing it over to the Faldorn player in order to defend it. And fishing out an Ignoble Hierarch, just a mana dork, which you probably expect for just 1 mana. Finishing off the red battle with the Dinosaur, which does gain Exalted. Doesn't matter, this only has 1 counter left on it, so turns into the 4/4 Prowess. That adds a shock to the non-creature sources of damage. The Faldorn player continuing to stick it out, just played a land this turn though. Appreciate him sticking it out. Harold's Horn, let's see if he can go for a second card off this. Does manage to, so that's doing some work. That is Inga and a Seeker. Creatures you control have Vigilance and can tap for a mana of any colour. Whenever you cast a creature spell, if 3 or more creature mana was spent to cast it, draw. So going for Inga and a Seeker. Buffing the commander and getting a Scry too, thanks to it being blue. And there we see Sigarda, Font of Blessings, so this one cares about humans I think. You may cast Angels and Humans from the top of your library. Other permanents you control have hexproof. So that's another buff on the Aragorn, currently an 11/11, and another human soldier token. Luckily no trample on the commander yet. And the 11/11 comes in at us. I mean, all we do is chump block here. So not really all that bothered about going after Faldorn while he's wide open, which I can appreciate. And then we see a Champion of Lamholt, some pretty scary stuff here now, so need to start concentrating on this player. If he can get a +4 buff onto the Champion of Lamholt from his commander, then gonna get some stuff being unblockable. Let's get down the Mithril Coat onto our commander so that we can dodge any board wipes in the future. Should be able to get rid of the Champion of Lamholt with the Archfiend of Ifnir though. And that successfully lands, so we've got a Hexproof, Indestructible, Trample Haste, can't be blocked by creatures except with flying and reach, which means we can't go over here with it. Alright, A3 visits is probably more discard fodder at this point. Spelunking is a new one that I haven't had chance to play outside this deck. It makes lands you have enter come into play untapped, so I think we get that in before I forget. I need to remember that I haven't made a land this turn yet either, so can hold on to one after we draw with the Gitrog, I think. Spelunking triggers when it enters, we draw into Tear Asunder, which I don't mind having, but we'll not play a land with that. Now, we could draw a bunch of cards with the green sleeves, but I wouldn't mind making a bunch of badges with that at some point. Problem is, I always seem to hold on to this and never get a chance to play it with badges, because we want to play big creatures and sack him immediately. Let's get down the Evasion of Chandelier, and we'll hand that over to this player, because I think he's going to be the easiest to get through. And then the invasion triggers, we can return 3 permanents, so we just so happen to have 3 permanents in the bin already, thanks to the sacrificing. The Topiary Stomper I think we discarded previously. Alright, so they come into play. We've got 4 mana there, we want to hold up Tear Asunder probably, so let's just go for this thing, and then make sure to saddle, which taps it down. We start combat with 7 cards in hand. We're just trying to draw as much as possible to do one-sided board wipes here, so yeah, why don't we try and get rid of this battle with the zombies just for the fun of it. So we have to account for blockers, so 2 of them are blocked, 2 of them are not and get through to the battle, and then the other 4 can go in at the player. So 4 at the battle, 4 at the player. The 5/4 can go into the left as well, I think. Yeah, that doesn't have flying. And then the Gitrog can go straight down the middle because we're threatening commander damage there. Blocking 1 zombie with the 4/4, might as well take it down. Alright, so damage is dealt. We are going to flip round the invasion straight away. Put Gitrog on the stack first. And the enchantment that we get into from the invasion of Chandelier, we do have to cast it from exile. That might be our means of getting the green sleeves into play. Depending on what our opponents do during the next cycle, we get to do that during the upkeep, put a permanent into play for free. And then we do choose to sacrifice the 11/10 again. So going down to 50 cards, we only get into a couple of lands though. Let's get the forest into play. We'll hard cast the Nykthos. And we do have a Balagad Recovery there as well. We've drawn into the ultimate, Yargle and Multani. 18 cards, we'll draw off that. Got into a Filth as well, so anyone with a swamp will be able to swing straight through with all of our creatures. Alright, so play the Shrine to Nyx. Don't have that much devotion. Yeah, only got devotion to green of 3 at the moment, actually. But we do want to make use of this mana as best we can. So if it's 4 mana for a Tear Asunder, it's 3 mana left. So maybe we just go for the Garruk's Uprising then. And that will cantrip us again when it enters, thanks to us having 2 big creatures in play. But we're halfway down with our deck, so we need to get closer to taking players out. We're doing alright with all the tokens, but it assumes that we are not going to see a board wipe here. Speaking of which, we draw into a Damnation. So go through to the discard phase, and Psychosis Crawler might be worth keeping, so we'll make a small pile of what we want to keep. Alright, I think this pile will be alright, meaning we discard 3 visits, the 2 3-mana permanents that we just grabbed out of the bin, another 3-mana big creature. Filth is relevant for Swamp Walk. Doming Gate, we're unblockable, so I don't think it will be. Lightning Greaves, we can't be targeted already. And hopefully I won't regret getting rid of a Damnation. Argument to be made for keeping hold of the Balagad Recovery now that I think about it, but not to worry. Archfiend of Ifnir, a one-sided board wipe as far as I can tell. Giving our opponents plenty of time to deal with us though, at least. The 5-colour player can go for a Cascade effect. He's just passing straight through his turn seemingly, so might have a Rift or something like that. Iroas got a Victory, makes it easier to attack, and then just decides to scoop because he might have screwed up on the whole Cascade thing. He tapped all his mana and then went for a God instead, so I'm assuming he could have gone for a bigger Cascade than that. That might be a shame scoop. Surprised our opponents have played it out as long as they have though, to be honest. Alright, and now the game has just randomly crashed, so I think it was looking pretty commanding for us. Our opponents would have struggled to keep the Gitrog monster out of play, even if they had a Cyclonic Rift or a Toxic Deluge or something like that. I've no idea why the game crashed there, it's not like there were too many permanents in play. But as ever, if you've seen this one, it's the best of a bad bunch. It's a shame because the one time that our opponents were actually deciding to play it out is the one time, or one of the times, that the game crashes. But it shows off what the Gitrog monster can do. We were in a pretty one-sided game here anyway, once we started doing the one-sided board wipes and drawing all the cards. Our opponents didn't have too many in their hands, so might have been pretty much reliant on their top decks. Hope you all enjoyed it anyway. I'll have put a warning at the beginning of the video that it was going to end like this, so hopefully you did get some enjoyment out of it. Big thank you to the patrons for their financial support as well. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.